Press this button and you feel it click. Solid. Physical. Like every button you've ever pushed. Except this one has a secret. Cut it open and there's nothing to press. No hinge. No gap. No little switch underneath. It doesn't move. Not even a hair. And yet your finger is absolutely certain it just clicked something. So what did you actually feel? Whatever made that click, it's in here. Behind the glass. And if you strip the phone down, most of what's inside has an obvious job. Battery, camera, the main board. But there's this one little block. It doesn't compute anything. It doesn't store anything. Its entire job is to move. And it's the reason a piece of solid glass can fool your fingertip. Now, if I asked you to picture what makes a phone shake, you'd probably think of this. A tiny motor. A little lopsided weight bolted to the shaft. Spin it fast, and the whole phone wobbles in a circle. That's a real design. It's cheap, it's simple, and it powered pagers and flip phones for decades. But it's got one deep flaw. Speed, strength, and pitch are all the same knob. Want a stronger buzz? It also gets faster and higher. You can't separate them. Which means this thing can do exactly one trick. It can buzz. And that's it. But the thing in your phone right now? It threw that spinning design away. Watch how it moves. It doesn't go in circles, it slides. Back and forth in a straight line. There's a weight on a spring wrapped in a coil of wire. Run current through the coil, and the weight gets shoved one way, then the other. And if that setup sounds familiar, it should. That's how a speaker works. A coil, a magnet, a thing pushed back and forth. A speaker pushes air. This pushes a weight. Same idea. So why does swapping a spin for a slide change everything? A weight on a spring has a frequency it loves. Push it at just the right rhythm, and it swings huge for almost no effort. Push it at the wrong rhythm, and it barely budges. Engineers tune this thing to sit right on that sweet spot. And when you hit it there, it snaps to full strength in about one swing. Roughly 10 milliseconds. That's faster than you can perceive. It also sips power, around a third of what the old spinning motor burned, so it's quicker and it's more efficient. Sounds perfect. Except there's a catch, and it's a big one. Here's the problem with springs. Once you get them moving, they don't want to stop. Think about a kid on a swing. You give one push, and it keeps going. Back and forth, slowly fading out. Your vibrator does the exact same thing. You send one pulse, and it rings. And that long, sloppy ringing, that's the smear. That's what turns a clean, sharp tap into a lazy buzz. So if you want that crisp little click, you've got a real question to solve. How do you make a swing stop now? You catch it. At the exact bottom of its swing, you grab it, and it stops dead. That's the trick. The moment the vibrator should keep ringing, the chip fires a second pulse. Same frequency, but flipped, pushing exactly against the motion. The two cancel out, and the weight just stops. No smear. No tail. Engineers call it active braking. And once you see it, you realize something kind of backwards about this whole thing. The crisp feeling? It's not about how hard it hits. It's about how fast it stops. Look at these two. Same strength, same power going in. But one starts and stops in an instant, and the other lingers. Your fingertip reads that difference as night and day. The sharp one feels like a click. The lingering one feels like a cheap toy. So the secret to a premium tap was never about pushing harder. It was about stopping cleaner. But to stop it that cleanly, the chip has to know one number perfectly, and that number won't hold still. That perfect frequency, the one the braking pulse has to match, it drifts. As the phone warms up in your hand, it shifts. The way you're gripping it, shifts it again. Even age nudges it over time. So the target is always sliding, just a little. And if the chip keeps aiming at where the target used to be, the braking misses. The tap gets mushy, which raises an obvious problem. How do you hit a bullseye that keeps moving? So it listens. When that weight moves, the coil generates a tiny voltage of its own. A little electrical echo. And a dedicated chip reads that echo to figure out exactly what frequency the vibrator is ringing at right now. Then it re-aims the braking pulse to match, constantly. Every time your phone taps, this chip is measuring, adjusting, retuning, all in real time. Hundreds of times a day, and you have never once noticed. Which brings us all the way back to that button. The one that doesn't move. When you press it, the whole surface stays put. But underneath, that vibrator fires one perfect, braked pulse. Sharp start. Sharp stop. And your brain, feeling that exact shape, is completely convinced a button just clicked. It didn't. Nothing moved. You didn't feel a button. You felt a waveform. Your sense of touch got rendered, like a special effect. And once engineers realized they could do that, they stopped thinking of this as a buzzer at all. They started writing touch like music. That little tap when a payment goes through. The double buzz of a warning. The tick under your keyboard. Those aren't random. Each one is a designed waveform with a name. And remember the old motor where strength and pitch were welded together? Gone. Now engineers can dial sharpness and strength completely separately. It's a whole vocabulary you feel instead of hear. But there's a ceiling on how much this little thing can say. And it comes from the very trick that made it great. That sweet spot we tuned it to? It's also a cage. This vibrator is brilliant at its one favorite frequency and weak everywhere else. It's a one-note instrument. To make it expressive, to let it play a real range of sensations, engineers have to widen that sweet spot, and that costs them. Bigger parts, more power. There are other roads, too. Ceramic parts that flex can be faster and finer, but they need very high voltage and barely move, so phones mostly passed on them. Which leaves one last trade. And it's the one nobody sees coming. Inside a phone, every cubic millimeter is a fight. And a better, richer tap means a bigger vibrator, which means less room for battery. So when a company builds a phone that feels amazing in your hand, they made a quiet decision you never saw. They gave up a little battery life on purpose, just so a tap would feel right. Think about that. Engineers trading real runtime for a feeling, because they figured out that how a phone feels is part of how good it seems. And they're only getting started. For a long time, a screen only had two ways to reach you: light and sound. Now there's a third. Engineers are learning to draw with touch, to make glass feel like fabric or a ridge or an edge that isn't there. It's early. The tools are still crude, but the direction is clear. The next time your phone taps you and you feel that clean little click, remember, nothing really clicked. A weight slid a fraction of a millimeter, and a chip caught it at exactly the right instant. You didn't feel a machine. You felt a decision about when to stop. Until next time, stay curious. Curious human.